this is
Hi.
our hi. This is our last Ask Jeremy live stream. I'm Louise Mignot. I'm the president of the SDSG NDP Writing Association and part of the Jeremy Rose election team. Jeremy is our NDP candidate for SD and G. He has a passion for community service and progressive change and is dedicated to advocating for working class families, social justice, and a fairer economy. Ken Smith is a is a retired teacher and instructor. He's been involved with the NDP for 6 years, and on this campaign, Ken has been a star canvasser, event attender, and all-around worker bee. His words. Jacqueline Milner is a well-known local artist. Jackie is a Green Party member who ran in the last provincial election in 2022. Her personal focus has always been on all things environmental. Matteo Lucio is a 20-year-old student in his third year studying political science at the University of Ottawa. He's interested in politics, movies, and music. And Phyllis Sado is a new member of our Writing Association board. Phyllis is a trained mental health and addictions worker. Phyllis will be monitoring the chat. So if you have a question, put it in the chat and Phyllis will ask it for you. Okay. So how's everybody tonight?
Welcome everybody.
Yeah.
Louise, how do I do the chat?
It's a button down at the bottom. So if you can see, there's the disappearing bar at the bottom. When you look and put across it, one of those is called chat next to participants. Okay. Bring it on up and you'll be in good shape.
I want to send it.
Yep.
Most people leave it on all the time.
Okay.
And you can write to anybody.
Okay.
Leave the
Excellent.
chat for us open. It's our chat that you want to look at.
Okay.
That's right.
Facebook is Phyllis.
Can I put a question in right away? Or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, you don't type it in, Ken. Louise is going to act as referee. So she's going to lead us in, but by all means, when you get the opportunity, you just jump in to speak your heart.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me just start. And then once it's open for everyone. So I just wanted to talk to Jeremy briefly about this. The election is just 2 days away, okay? What's on your mind as you head into the final hours of this campaign?
Well, I mean, it has been an amazing campaign. You're starting to talk about where it's coming into its close, and it's been a really great opportunity to talk with a lot of people and see the excitement for the NDP message. I think this is a big change for us in SDNG, and so that's something that I'm really looking forward to, maybe going all the way there for. The focus now shifts, of course, to talking to people about voting. And if you haven't done it yet, where to go? If you need help to get to the polls, how can we help you? Well, maybe we'll get into that tonight. So especially if there's anybody in the chat and you're on the edge now, it's time to ask those questions. We're here for you, for good, for bad, anything we can do to make you vote. We want to help you get there.
Are there stories or comments from family, friends, or voters who you've met at the door that have made you think this is why I'm running?
Like a lot of people at the door are sharing personal stories of how what's like to try to get healthcare right now. And as a guy that was raised by a nurse who works in the emerge and raised by a paramedic who's helping people get to the hospital, those things really hit home because I remember growing up what normal looked like. And that it's changed to the point where we need to, like, personally for me, I know that I've got family who've had a hard time because, well, basically they needed help and there was nothing left for them but hallway medicine. And they knew full well that that was just not the way this was supposed to happen. So I take those messages from those people and it really does reinforce what was in my gut when I said I was going to put up my hand and do this, because these are the sorts of things that need to change.
Okay. Ken?
Me?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Your light came on, so I was wondering if you wanted to say something. If you want to say something, either jump in or raise your hand.
I'll have a couple questions as we go.
Okay.
But on the topic we're talking about right now, Jeremy, I wanted to ask you, Going into, I mean, the election's in 2 days now. Do you have any like big takeaways or anything you've learned from the campaign?
I think as much as I was afraid that I wasn't going to know what to do, that the things that I've done in my life have actually made me ready. There was never an uh-oh moment. People have been amazing. People have been engaging. And this positive message thing is working. So I feel ready. I feel more reinforced more than ever to make this a long-term commitment.
She's,
Does
I
that
like
answer
she's
your question?
clapping with no sound. So let's talk about healthcare because it's the main topic or one of the main topics that you know is talked about continuously in this election. Um, I've talked to people who've had to drive hours just to get to an open ER, or who spent hours waiting to be seen in the ER, waiting months for a specialist, or who don't even have a family doctor. And this question is kind of open to everybody to talk about. Um, have you or anyone close to you had a personal experience with our struggling healthcare system? Nobody?
But no, by all means, like everyone, I know everyone's got a story. I think that's the hardest part for me is some of my stories about healthcare experiences are deeply personal. And that's why I generalize when somebody's giving me in confidence the story that they have. And that's part of the reason why it's so important is to understand that when you need it, you really need it to be left in that moment when you're most vulnerable. It's a hospital. This is healthcare. When you talk about healthcare, this is the thing we do together that we can't do alone. It's a very isolating feeling, which means it's a very strong emotion when people speak to those personal experiences. And it's part of why it needs to change.
Well, listen, I'm a senior, even though I don't look it. And and so I'm I see things changing. I went for almost a year without a family doctor, and the only way that I got one was I called every single doctor in town. And I ended up in the ER a couple of years ago, really, really sick with I didn't know what. Later on, I found out I had COVID, but at the time I wasn't sure. And, I waited and I waited and I waited and I felt dreadful. Okay. And, you know, it's kind of like I eventually left. I didn't get seen and nobody knew what was the matter. Uh, I just felt like this was inhuman. So when I look at this experience and I think about other people who are older or people that have kids that are going through this type of thing, to me it's just devastating. And so, you know, I don't know. I kind of wonder what it could be like if we had the sort of the funding and the staff that we need.
It's a funny thing about whether or not we have a government that listens, because some of the recent experiences for me were like I got the chance to meet with Cindy, who's a wonderful ONA representative. She drove down from Winchester to meet me. I was the only person to receive her. I felt so horrible because her banner and her message from was signed by all of the nurses. It was about nurse to patient ratios. And it's always
Sure.
just like the nurses work so hard
Yes, they do.
that like you see the people, not the uniform when you're in those bad days. It was about 10 hours for me before I realized I just wasn't going to see a doctor. I couldn't stay any longer, but I was never angry at the people that were there. I was angry at the situation I was in. So when we hire the 15,000 new nurses, the 3,500 new doctors, it's a conversation about how we support them, making sure that when they tell us that they need such things like nurse to patient ratios to be codified. That was Bill 192. It was an NDP initiative that unfortunately the conservative government shot down and didn't listen to. the need for wage parity is in our platform to make sure that they're properly incentivized, to make sure that we prevent burnout from happening, because these are where the absences come from in the first place. When we support the people, the thing gets better.
Yeah, yeah. Phyllis, you had a question?
Yeah, well, actually, I'd like to share my experience with the healthcare
Yes.
system. I've only been in Cornwall a little over 3 years, and I've had actually 3 different experiences. And I'll give you the shorter version, otherwise I could talk for 3 hours about it. But the first experience about 3 years ago, when I had to go to the Pitt Street Clinic, I had recently been diagnosed with COPD and told that I only had 28% lung function. So when I got to the clinic an hour and a half before its opening, there was already 10 people in line. This is the winter. It was about minus 25 degrees. I had to stand in that line for almost 2 hours. At one point, I had to sit down on the sidewalk because I couldn't stand standing anymore. So that was experience number one. To get into the clinic finally by, I don't know, 9:30, 10 a.m. and telling me that I was one of the last people and to come back at 4 o'clock. Okay, so that was experience number one. Experience number two was more recent when I got extremely sick and I had to call 911. They were amazing. And the people, there was 3 people, 2 women and a man. They came within 20 minutes. The dispatcher on the phone was wonderful. Nothing to do with the people, but the system. This is how broken it is. Well, I don't know if I want to use the word broken, but this is how horrible it is. Because my vital signs were okay, they offered me to go to the hospital if I wanted, but came right out and basically told me I'd wait 14 to 16 hours. So I'm like, okay, so if you call 911, what, you have to be almost dead before they'll take you into the hospital and get rushed through? I mean, even with 911, you'll still have to wait 16 hours. So quite honestly, I feel like this could be a third world country healthcare system.
You know, to your first point, Phyllis, we always, and I use the term joking, 'cause it is sad, but I use the term joking. Every time we go to the walk-in clinic, we're like, it's during winter especially, it's like, it's kind of sad that we're here to get treated and we can get sick because of the extreme cold
Waiting to get treated.
temperatures.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Just ridiculous. Now, my last little story is that I waited 14 months to see a dermatologist, had to pay out of pocket to get to West End of Ottawa. And this doctor came in. I had a list of questions. I had been waiting for 14 months. I was concerned about a serious skin cancer issue. And he walks in the room with an angry attitude, doesn't even greet me, starts complaining about his day. And he said, "You've got 7 minutes of my time. What do you want?" I almost started crying to the point that he actually said to me, "Don't cry." Can you imagine? You wait 14 months and you get 3 minutes with it. Anyway, I can't talk anymore about that story because it was really horrific. Okay.
It's
These
really
doctors
personal.
are being pushed to see so many patients, and it's all about go, 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 go. There's no more compassion. There's no empathy. Anyway, okay. Sorry, I'm taking up too much time.
No,
Phyllis,
it's okay.
no, this is it, is to hear you and to share the stories. Thank
These
you,
are my
because
personal stories. I am so not happy with the healthcare system here.
everybody here was nodding their heads going, yeah. Like for me, it was just it was a tear in muscle in my back, but I can't work with a torn muscle. I'm a physical
No.
laborer. So the 3 days, the first 10 hours of waiting to be seen and realizing I wasn't going to get seen. And then the 8 hours next day in the next hospital, realizing I wasn't going to get seen. And in the 6 hours by showing up at the clinic and getting lucky just because somebody canceled before
Oh.
I could finally get the paperwork done so that I could do modified duties and get back to making money to pay my mortgage.
Oh
Like,
my
you're
God.
right. You're right. This is what it's like. This is when we were in the debate. If anyone's had the chance to see the debate, the Your TV debate is still available online on YouTube.
No.
So you can look at the Your TV debate from SDSG. Just skip 20 minutes ahead and then it gets started. And in the debate, Nolan Quinn, nice guy and all, but for the conservative platform as the answer, he kept quoting numbers about the help that was
Yeah,
coming to
yeah.
fund it. And the
Yeah.
answer simply was, we have all lived this. Left, right, look around the room. We know it's not enough. It's not enough support for doctors. Doctors experiencing burnout, losing sight of the Hippocratic Oath, nurses burning out and just not able to come into work.
Yeah.
We have to help these people. We know these are empathetic people. They know that that was their ambition. These are the signs of the times. They need the support. And one of the big splits that ends up happening is, of course, when we try to funnel it over into a private system, and all the resources we say we aren't helping are going into a different, completely different system where you have to decide whether you're going to use your health card or your credit card.
Right.
Deal with co-pays. Do you have insurance? Not all of us. Well, I guess that's
No.
too bad. It's an NDP commitment to make sure that when we answer these questions, it's uniquely us, and it's part of my passion for this party, is that we believe in public health care. It was an NDP initiative. It's going to basically fall to the NDP. We know we need it. We will make it happen. And it's the only way this can get better.
I'm going to add something in there because I was looking at this today. When asked about sort of future privatization, Doug Ford did tell us publicly that yes, he was going to go for more and more privatization. And so did Liberal Bonnie Crombie, which really surprised me.
Which is a massive departure, because they tried to jump on the bandwagon for everything else. Because yes, Merritt put a pretty good plan out there, didn't she? I
Yeah.
really like Merritt Styles' platform, the empathy that's there, the genuineness of the leadership, to see it's like basically she's not bickering or fighting with anybody, which is more of a Canadian version of politics. Is I don't like mudslinging and attacks and back and forth. And I really am comforted. I am encouraged by that. And to remember that the NDP are the official opposition. All it takes is the votes, the support, and we're ready to lead. And that's your next premier. Doug Ford is not forever. In fact, show him the door. I don't believe that's the way forward for Ontario. I genuinely, truly believe I'm here because I believe Merritt Styles can make it better.
Oh, absolutely.
I have
Louise-
something to add. I have something to add on healthcare.
Go for it.
Going door to door and canvassing, I've heard a couple of stories where with the increase of the privatization clinics, there are extreme backlogs for public health operations. I've heard of a couple of people that needed serious hip replacements. They couldn't get them right away, so they opted to go to Quebec. I don't know why Quebec. There was an availability there, and they paid like $34,000 and got a pretty prompt operation on their hips. And I'm curious about that. And then also someone had mentioned cataract removal here in Cornwall. There's an optometrist surgeon, Dr. Dubuc, on Montreal Road, and he's charging privatization clinic fees, and he's got a two-tier system. You can get the cataracts removed for a certain price, but if you want an extra special upgraded operation on your cataracts, you pay a higher fee. So I don't know what that's all about either.
Well, I think that some of it is done in the hospital for one fee and done by laser for another fee, but ultimately it ends up being the same surgery,
Mhm.
you know.
Louise, you started this by talking about asking any of us if we have personal experiences or people we know. And we've heard from Phyllis, we've heard Ken talking about people who have to go to Quebec. And I think the sad truth is everybody on this panel, I can guarantee, knows someone who maybe doesn't have a family doctor. Everybody in the chat knows they've had to wait a long time to be seen.
7 years for me. 7
Mhm.
years to get a Dr. Mateo. 7.
I'm on the wait list right now.
Okay. You'll probably wait 7 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think it's been 4 now. It was in the pandemic era where our family doctor moved. So it's been a while.
That's unfortunate. And so, I mean, let's talk about the plan. Let's talk about the good news. Make sure we
Yeah.
focus on the positive here,
Yeah.
because that's the hard part with healthcare. Is to remember, like, that the NDP platform, the way that we're going to be able to do this is when we find the doctors, is to make sure that they make grouped public healthcare spaces. And so there's a lot of the red tape around becoming a doctor in Ontario gets eliminated. A lot of the bureaucracy, the paperwork they have to go through the day, they get help with, and they can focus on seeing patients more, which is an encouraging thing because we're trying to attract doctors here. And we urgently need doctors that are already trained, ready to immigrate to Ontario and make it happen. We know we live in a beautiful part of the world. So that's not the problem. It's probably, and it's likely to be, it's making sure that they have those good spaces, because we are very, very short on doctors in Eastern Ontario, Mateo. You're absolutely right. That fear is real, but we have to know that the doctors are out there. All they need is the opportunity.
Well, we're short on doctors, but we've also seen ERs closing,
Yes.
nighttime closures and stuff like that. And so what that ends up being is if you have an emergency, you're driving to the next hospital, which could be hours away. That really can be the difference between life and death.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think they've been very genuine, the Conservative Party, in the type of instructions they've given to hospitals and how they say they've solved that. When we talk about hallway medicine or chair medicine, and we hire spare paramedics just to put people aside, technically, it's still closed, man. Where's the doctor? People
Yeah.
aren't being seen. So though there's been some efforts made and this is viewed as progress, yes, the effort, it's still not there. And we need to do more.
Well, I'm going to add, I will. I was looking at the platform from the Conservatives, and they're talking about investing 1.8 billion to connect everyone in Ontario to a family doctor. Well, that boils down to $114 per person.
Well,
It sounds
at
like a
least
really big number, but
it just keeps throwing big. Well, at least they put a number out there, because as frustrating as it was, is they were the ones that called the snap election a year and a half early, which is okay. Now what? Everybody scrambled to put a platform up, but if you would imagine anybody who was ready for it, maybe it would be the guy that called it. And at least finally they put some numbers up on the board. But then, of course, when we see it and you actually read it, if you have enough time before you form your opinion, yeah, you start to break that down, and it's not quite what you expected, is it? It's not quite what we need. And somehow the promise to increase all the spending, bring it all back. The things we didn't do for 7 years, now we're going to do them for you. But also, we're going to give you a tax cut. Also, we're going to give you a fuel rate. Also, we're going to give you a tunnel underneath the 401. Also, I'm going to drop the price of your booze. Are you satisfied yet? And it's a very disingenuous presentation. And I like the more positive and steady message that the NDP have offered the whole time. It's not a new thing to talk about because it's already there.
Yeah.
We needed the time to get the platform out, but we talked about what we were going to do and where our commitments lay. And they're still there, costed out and ready to go.
Yeah. Anybody else want to jump in on this one? Okay, so yeah. When you're talking, another thing, sort of key social pillar is education, right? And we know that we've had a lot of issues locally. So I'm sort of going like, imagine that you're a parent watching tonight, worried that their child isn't getting the support that they need in school. Maybe the class is too big, or they can't get special education help. What would you say to them, and what would change if they were properly funded?
Well, I guess the first thing I'd say to anybody who's watching the live chat tonight is that I'm a parent too. So my son, my eldest, is going off to college. My daughter, my middle child, she's in high school. My youngest, my other son, is in grade school. And all those fears are real. The types of support they're going to need, the things that are going on with the education system, we're living in real time. Max has had to deal with that in his entire life. So with what's been happening with the colleges, so we've been reading in the news about the percentages, these drastic cuts and the catastrophic damage. My wife is an artist, is at the Center 125. Louise and I, we're all happy to have this space. Many of the people that Brett knows are in the Algonquin programs of the arts, and they're all going to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
These are skilled, talented people with decades of experience who are doing everything in their power to take care and work on making sure they can support students. And it's simply just the neglect of the system. It's not like there isn't demand there. This is all just as a result of the system becoming unstable. Cut so deep, they started to hurt. They started to do real damage, and losing those teachers is a catastrophe. We've already seen it in the K-12 system, as the burnout stress of attempting to navigate to that system from when it was, cutbacks on infrastructure and supplies. They're only promising to start to fix these schools now. You have to build 124, where you try to strong arm all the unions and take away their collective bargaining rights. And you end up costing the province $4 million in a lawsuit that you lost twice. it really needs to change. And the NDP platform, the NDP plan is absolutely to make sure that we get educators the support they need to get back on track. And I have to believe in that for the sake of every parents. We need to know that there's a government coming where help is on the way, where the money's going to be put where it's needed to make sure these institutions stay strong. If only for the selfish reason that a healthy, qualified workforce makes more money, you're better off. And if you're better off, you're in a better position to contribute to everything that we need. The things we do together that we can't do alone. If we work together and make ourselves stronger, it has to be a brighter future.
Instead of like all the programs that they've just recently cut at St. Lawrence College.
Yeah, this is
And
difficult.
that broke my heart, Jeremy. That really bothered me because the programs that they're cutting are the ones that are needed the most.
Yeah.
And
if you're
our
in the trades
MPP
programs.
and our MPP is the Minister of Colleges and Universities.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A part of this frustration, of course, is because of the chaos of the government that we had. This is what frustrates me the most. You know, you can probably find some common ground with a conservative if it hadn't gone this way. It's a question of, like, you know, for Mr. Quinn, he had 4 different appointments in 2.5 years. You know, he was suddenly slotted into as the Minister of Colleges and Universities. And yes, under his watch, he never once raised the alarm. He had the chance to meet the heads of these schools. He knew that there was the danger, but I don't think that the government ever really had the ambition to act and to leave this system vulnerable. One of the best in the world. Like, you don't just get international students. You have to have a reputation for international students who want to come here.
Yeah.
Right? That demand is not just assumed. You should understand that that was the product of the efforts of the teachers that worked in those schools and the system that was put in place. So to leave it vulnerable and addicted and held to this, like using international students to charge more money to try to prop the system up.
4 times more. 4 times more.
Awful. I mean, they were happy to pay, so happy to have you. But yes, it was a canary in the coal mine that nobody was paying attention to. That when later, when the chaos of the federal government that we currently have, that we will soon be discussing, brought a crisis to their door. They weren't ready. Still aren't. Still need someone else to step in and make some change.
Talking about vulnerability, it looks like the college itself or construction got caught completely off guard because they've gone ahead and they've almost finished a whole new addition to the college building.
I saw that.
What are they going to do for students there? And then across the street on Montreal Road from the boulevard down to the college, they've gone ahead and started the construction of a big building, which was supposed to be and probably still will be for students as a residence.
Residents?
And,
Oh, good.
you know,
Good.
yeah. And are they going to have, is that going to be a viable building? These two construction situations for the college with the extreme cutback in programs.
I think it depends, Ken, what government gets in.
Yeah, I can't speak to knowing at this point because I know when they originally dug the pond, as it became for years and years, why they weren't able to go forward and whether they still the college's interest or private interest or just trying to get something built. But yeah, it was a real frustration because maybe that was already a sign of the times is even back then, I can't remember how many years ago now, they'd already dug that hole for that foundation,
right?
Where they had to sit on that and not get anywhere. And so much funding ends up with asterisks for infrastructure only. So even though there were strikes and there were negotiations and there were needs to fund the teachers, that money probably had to be spent on the building or they weren't going to get it at all. You do need to invest in your infrastructure, but it's very frustrating and it comes off as tone deaf once you're in a crisis like this, where you're putting a new wing on a place that's going to cut so much of its course load. Make a good point.
I just think like the current progressive conservative government, it's just so much educational malpractice, whether it be teachers or students in K to 12 or students in universities. And using myself as an example, I'm getting about the exact same money in OSAP as I was when I started university. Do you think people are paying the same amount of rent? Do you think newcomers into universities are paying the same rent they were 3 years ago? No, it's up. I know where I live for new renters, it's up by like 25%.
But tuition free sounds pretty good until you realize that you really needed to get topped up for more. The tuition freeze, you're right. It was look good on paper, but it actually put more burden on you because only so much more came to you in a grant. And if you dared to work more than that and just to try to make your rent, they would actually punish you by taking your grant away. Or at least that's what it was. I'm still making my student loans, so it's not that far back in the past as the way they were trying to fix things. And part of the solution is going to be two parts to this problem. Of course, it's 20% per student to start immediately. Base funding goes back to the college. It's just to get the thing up and running. That's not on you. That's the government having to make sure that that building is there for you. And then for you, making sure that it's not going to be a loan, it's going to be a grant. So as to not just burden you with further like challenges to costs of living while you're trying to do your best to step up and make sure you're going to be able to enter into the workforce and do the things you want to do with your life. And then from there, yeah, your grant needs to be bigger if we expect you to train and not work. We need to help you invest in what you're going to be doing because you're working so hard. I'm really even surprised and glad you can make it tonight. I get it's a priority for you, which means I'm really pleased that you're here, but you're working your butt off and you need more
Yeah.
support.
I came here fresh out of an online lab, so
Kidding.
Oh, boy.
You may want to consider a career in politics, Mateo.
I'm a political science student. So
Well, yeah, there you go.
if I don't go to law school, and you maybe even though I do go to law school, it's the plan
Yep.
maybe.
Oh yeah, many politicians are lawyers, so yep.
With Mateo mentioning rent for students, I've just recently moved into a room for rent, and I'm paying $900 a month. And I was seeing that a lot of accommodations in Cornwall were for students, and that seems to be the going price. You're lucky if you get something around $700 a month, and then you're in a in a room with other rooms in a big house kind of situation. And with me at $900 a month for my room, I'm on pension for $1,900. So that's almost half my pension right there. And then I got to pay my ongoing monthly bills, my internet, and then my groceries especially. And then I've got no money at the end of the month.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I have a really decent. I'm privileged for my living situation, but I'm still paying the amount of money people were paying maybe 5 years ago for a one bedroom, and I live in one room in a house.
Well, we were here, I think this is last night or something, we were talking about some of this, and we were hearing somebody talking about students locally who are paying $500 or $600 a month for a bed in a room where there's 2 or 3 people to a
Mhm.
room in an apartment or a house. I mean, that is,
One bathroom, sometimes 5,
Mhm.
7 people, one bathroom. Even the house that I live in, I mean, it's one house and it's been converted so that there's 3 different families.
Yeah.
It's, the way of the world is not like it was before, and I doubt that it'll ever go back there. But honestly, the affordable housing crisis, I think, especially for Mateo's age and, between 18 and 30-year-olds, they must feel it's hopeless, like they will never own their own home.
Yeah,
Breaks my
if
heart.
I could actually bring something up real quick, I saw this earlier today, and I think it's really relevant to the conversation.
Okay.
It points out that this tweet reads, "Most people forget or never knew that one of Doug Ford's first acts as premier in 2018 was to roll back rent control in Ontario. And guess what happened? Average rent in Ontario went from 1203 in 2018 to 2329 in 2024,
There you go.
a 93.6% increase."
Knowing full well that a bunch of buildings are about to come online, he made sure those buildings would be exempt from any rent control policies that ever were existing. And so, I mean, but remember, we've always got to come back to trying to talk for hope, because there is a way to do this simply with your vote. The plan is 300,000 houses, and it's to use underused government lands that are public spaces, increasing density, changing the existing neighborhoods that we have into cooperatives or other housing initiatives. There are some Toronto ones, but I know Cornwall in particular has a lot of good cooperative housing. And we just need more. We need more affordable opportunities for people to find a place to live. And that is a big part of the platform. Since this campaign launched, we were talking about the homelessness, which is one thing, but the home housing crisis itself,
just
which is
affordable.
another, and how urgently it needs to be addressed, and in a much more human and respectful way. It does kind of dovetail in to Jackie. I see you've asked a question in the chat. I wondered if you wanted to join the conversation to talk about something that's very important to you.
That's
I'll need you
exactly
to
what I was
I'll need you
thinking.
to
I was
I would like
exactly
to see.
thinking that, Jackie. I was thinking,
Yeah.
and Jeremy, all these new homes and affordable co-ops, I hope they're being built on lands where we don't have to knock down trees.
Yeah. So yeah, by all means, Jackie, go right
Jackie.
ahead.
Well, certainly what I would like to see is any of the new infrastructure that we need to build that it has respect for the environment. I think that's so important. What does NDP party think about that?
Well, this is just it. So it's difficult to read the tea leaves because we live out in Eastern Ontario. And so a lot of the time when they're having these conversations, it can be very Toronto centric and we can feel a little bit out of touch with it. But a lot of let's say the conversation around the green belt would be a good case study, an example as to the intentions of the NDP. And there's absolutely no way. And Ottawa has a green belt as well. So you start to think about an Eastern philosophy and things that need to be sacrosanct or maintained. I think we've seen in the last few years, maybe it wasn't even for housing density, it was just for housing opportunities in Cornwall, where we ran roughshod over what were previously lands that were identified as delicate or not to be touched. And that's not part of the NDP plan. So the signaling here, we have to guess, because we're going to have to get a member who goes to Queen's Park that brings Eastern interests there to be respected, is that when it gets done, we have lots of green space, but we need to be mindful of which spaces we use. A lot of where the NDP platform is saying is that when it's affordable housing and it's these projects, they need to be tied. They need to be supported by the mental health and addiction services and the infrastructure that those people need to be within a green space or within a public transit space. So when that comes to Cornwall, there's only certain areas that can be. It can't be far flung out where you do a big development on a piece of land. The hard trade-off when we say we need more houses, of course, is you lose the green space when it happens, and that sucks. Say like the tree lines around Hamilton Port or around LeMay, these seem catastrophic. Those municipalities, I think, are working very hard to try to strike those balances, and the NDP will have to work with them to make sure that, yes, I agree with you 100%, that we need to keep that green space, like our bike paths. Cornwall, famous for its bike path, part of the Trans-Canada Trail. For me, as a personal passion, absolutely. And to have green borders while we're at it. More expansion of that service. It really, really got my ire when Doug Ford woke up one morning and decided that bike lanes inconvenienced him. That chaos just doesn't suit me as a premier. Forget the rest of it. That was infuriating. And I must have bothered you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Bothered a lot of people.
Yeah.
Is he still ripping them up?
He's banned any new ones. From last I heard, unless he's changed his mind. There was a $40 billion promise just made, and
all these people who appreciate exercise and getting healthy and staying fit, he would much rather see them go to the emergency room and get sick and wait 20 hours.
And it's not only that, Phyllis. It's like it's an economical way to get around. Drive a bike, right? No carbon footprint. It's good for the whole family. And it's not noisy.
Right. No carbon emissions, it's fitness, it's all positive.
Affordable. It's affordable.
Another thing too. Yes.
And
Wow.
even respectfully, for anybody that's got mobility issues that needs to get around, it's kind of frightening sometimes when you see them on the road trying to join with traffic. So it's simply a respectful thing to do. We shouldn't conflate, like, recreational trails. I loved as a kid going to bike up Gaindale Park, which was great, but also in the infrastructure itself, it just respects the people that live here. Not everybody can afford a car, especially with cost of living going up. It just
Yeah.
need a space to live. They're just trying to get to the grocery store.
Right. Ken, do you bike?
Yes, I don't have a car, and I'm an enthusiast for cycling in the summer. Like I ride the bike path out to Lancaster or out Long Sault to the Parkway to Ingleside. But just getting across town, it's so convenient. Like, I just jump on the bike path, so I got to come down to the river, whatever. But, I can go from the west end to the east end very easily, no traffic. And besides that, they got some really in-town good lanes like 2nd Street and 5th Street. They got bike lanes right across town in the city. So we're very well set up for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And it's affordable, right, Ken?
I don't have to spend money on gas and repairs. Well,
yes. Well, there's some maintenance and stuff, but
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Wow, Ken, you just reminded me of a story. One of my teachers when I was in like the 6th grade, she every once in a while she would ride her bike rather than drive her car from Long Sault to Bishop MacDonnell in Cornwall. And I just think,
Wow.
what a shame it would be if bike lanes we stopped having bike lanes and stuff like that wasn't possible anymore.
Yeah.
She did it the hard way. There wasn't really one once she hit the city, she was kind of stuck to get all the way up to Bishop.
Yeah. That's interesting. My sister had a boyfriend in Cornwall and we lived in Long Sault, and he would bike 4 to 5 days a week to come and see her from Cornwall to Long Sault.
It is a ride. It is. So we are so lucky to have something like that. And it's a passion of mine. If we can mix business and pleasure, to absolutely see that expand, if for no other reason, then it's one of the best reasons to live here. We have some amazing space here.
And then there's the safety with the bike path. You're right out of the traffic. You're along the river. You don't have to worry about cars or other motor vehicles. And you've got beautiful scenery along the way. You couldn't ask for more.
Yeah. It's a real attraction for people wanting to go on day trips or, on vacation, a week vacation. They can go from Montreal to who knows where and beyond.
And I think the Cornwall area is known for this. They're known for our area of bike paths.
Right.
Yes.
And most bike paths, correct me if I'm wrong, but most bike paths have the 2 separate lanes. So there's one for the bikes and then there's one for people who are walking.
It all depends on your ambition, for sure. You can look at Montreal offering good guidance there.
Right.
Yeah.
It encourages getting out.
That's where one of those funny things is that the bare minimum is the painted lines that we have. But much more research, I'm sure, like we can talk about this, is that there's a completely different infrastructure like we can see in Ottawa and Montreal that even in Cornwall we could implement for good benefit. While we're already tearing the roads up doing some of our sewer work, we could be looking that much further down the road. But that's municipal, right? That's just talking about our town. When we look outside into the counties as well, there are great opportunities to think about this as also something that's a benefit. Green initiatives are also good for the people when you are considering walk scores. That's a lot easier for those people, like say when we're talking about out in a rural area where you have a small business is having a hard time finding qualified workers. Well, if you have affordable housing that's within a safe and approachable walking distance to that work, or at least a shorter commute, everybody wins. That's what you're looking for. That's the sort of initiative that makes businesses grow. That's the sort of thing that helps rural homelessness. That's the sort of thing that helps rural engagement to get people to be comfortable to go out there. Green can be really, really good.
I think infrastructure is a good example of how the progressive conservative government with everything has strings attached. I mean, they flaunt new highways and stuff like that. But A, it's costing struggling taxpayers a lot of money, and B, they justify the doing away of like bike lanes with, oh yeah, we're gonna have bigger, better highways, so you don't need bikes. That's just not the case.
Well, that's not what everybody wants.
Right.
One of those scary things was I brought up the 138 in the debate, but I was like, oh no, gosh, God help us if they ever decided they were going to create a solution, because next thing you know, we're going to have another toll road. I don't know if anybody's ever had the pleasure. When's the last time anybody's been in the 407? All I did was a quick jaunt over to Markham. I was like, holy geez, every day? Every day? No, I'll take a fuel tax, please. It's only a couple bucks a tank.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. So as a solution to try to make asterisks and toll roads and exceptional prices like that, it's not fair, man. It's not the fair way to govern.
Mm-hmm.
So listen, let's talk because this is also this sort of a big part of issues in this election is cost of living, okay? I think we've all had the moment at the grocery store where we look at the total and wonder how it got so high. What's something, and this is sort of everybody question, what's something that has personally shocked you about how much the cost of living has gone up?
I
Nobody
guess
shocked?
I guess I'll start. One thing for me I always find crazy is, I mean, it's like the little items at a grocery store. You notice it. That just it like the prices seem like they've gone way up. You look and you're like, did I just see that orange juice was $12?
What?
And it's just like it's crazy. It's just little grocery items like that that you just see and you're like, wow, prices have really gone up.
Well, I've seen that over the last, couple of years. Something that was $3 has gone up to $4, and then within weeks it goes up to $5 or $6.
Hmm.
I'm going through the grocery store and I'm having heart failure. Not so much because I'm managing, but I'm trying to imagine people with families
Yeah,
who've got a bunch of kids
Yeah.
and they're minimum wage workers or they're middle class people. How do you feed a family on that?
I honestly, Louise, that's something that I question all the time when I'm in a grocery store and I see these women shopping and they have a child in the cart and a child so they have 3, 4 kids and they're picking up things, looking at prices. I see them doing it and they're putting it back. And I think to myself, I eat a vegetarian diet, so I had no clue the price of a thing of hamburger. No idea. I remember back in the day it being about $4, $5. So when I was in the store the other day and I saw a package for $16, I said, "What? How
Hmm.
how can a family feed their kids any of this meat?" I mean, for me, it's gone up 4 and 5 times the price than the last time I saw it.
Honest to
Wow.
gosh, that is,
Wow.
depending on the store, that's the sale price.
Okay,
It goes up from there,
thank
Yeah.
depending on
goodness I'm
whether
a
or not they'll leave
vegetarian,
burgers.
Jeremy. I'd
Hmm.
starve if I had to
Yeah.
buy meat.
I make our family wings sometimes, and I look at the price to get like 2 things of wings. It'll come up to like $45, and I'm like, at that point, is it even cheaper to do that than to just buy wings from like a restaurant?
Yeah,
No,
that's pretty
you're
$45
expensive.
for wings?
Yeah,
That's
it's like
ridiculous.
I guess a kilogram and a half. One of those packages is like $20,
Yeah.
and I get 2 of them to feed our 6-person family.
And
yep.
there's not much meat on wings to begin with, so everybody's
No.
probably still hungry.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
got to make
no.
sides too,
Honestly,
salad,
when
all
it
that.
comes to food prices, I think the highest increase is with like chicken and beef and meat products, and dairy has really skyrocketed. For me personally, a head of lettuce has been $2 or $3 for years. So I haven't noticed that much difference, but I don't know. Somebody else can chat here about
Sure.
this because like I said, I eat a vegetarian diet, but I
Oh,
truly think the most of the gouging of prices are with meat and dairy.
I would
So,
agree. I would agree with everyone that even the little things, even those little items, everything is chipped away and increased, and rising up. I found since COVID, like, as a single person shopping for myself, I look for bargains. And one of the things I used to look for was one ply toilet paper and one ply paper towel, and they were 99 cents for a long, long time. And as soon as COVID hit, it was left like $2, and now it's close to $3.
Yeah.
So it's almost tripled.
Yeah. Yeah.
so listen, what's the NDP's plan to help Ontarians make ends meet? Jeremy.
well, I'm glad you asked because I was wanting to give everybody to get their stories out because they're so important. Like this is it. Like I'm 6'4", I'm 215. I like to eat my feelings. I've got kids. They're big like me. And so, it is a struggle to try to make sure that the food's on the table. And I'm glad that since the beginning, knowing that this is an issue, the NDP made a plan. They made a pledge. So the pledge here is to create a grocery rebate. And what I really like about the grocery rebate is that it's tied to your income tax return. It is a direct benefit. If you need it, you get it, and it supports families, seniors, people who need to help getting food back on the table. Food security, when kids are going to school, making sure we have a universal food program for them to go. And finally, let's address the gouging we've all been talking about.
Yeah.
Like these large corporations taking big advantage of their control over so many of the types of, even though the grocery stores have different names to them, you can tell by all the house brands, they're all the same players. So appointing a watchdog that would come into force to basically make them accountable for their actions, making them display price rises like
Yes.
2% or greater anytime you raise the price in a week, same way you have to put down a sale, holds them accountable and stops with the sticker shock. When you get to the till, you have more honesty and fairness by forcing them to be honest about the prices that we're paying.
Well, I think that, you know, when I think that that one is actually a very interesting idea. And I think you know, I think a lot of people, you go shopping and you're filling your basket with all the stuff that you need. And for me, what happens is I sit there and I go, hang on, didn't I pay like $350 last week? And now they're asking me for $450. Well, I would really like to see that,
Yeah.
you know, because there's a certain kind of I won't buy it, or I'll complain. You know,
we know something's goofy when they switch to digital price tags.
yeah,
Right.
yes.
And
Right.
even when it was record profits, they still cut all the cashiers and they make us use self-checkout.
Hey, you
Things
could
just
have
aren't right.
you could have a way that that works with the watchdogs with the digital price tags. It can look like the stock market. You can see if the prices are going up or going down.
Literally what we're going to do, Mateo, this is literally where we're at. It's like, if you want to play that game, we're going to make you play that game fairly.
Yeah, well, I've seen that. I've actually been in a store. I don't think we have digital. Do we have digital here now?
Yep.
We might in some stores. I know I've seen it elsewhere, and I have been literally standing in front of a product and see the price go up, and it's like,
You're like,
excuse it, really?
yeah.
I mean, it blows my mind. That level of greed blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
know?
have a question here in the chat, Louise, for
Sure.
Jeremy. Jackie Brody is asking Jeremy, would the grocery rebate take into account people with gluten-free and celiac?
I believe since this is getting allocated universally, it's going to be based on your income. If you need it, you get it. Not a more or less. This is more of a fairness thing so that everyone within a tier gets an opportunity. Probably just gets much too more involved given this scope. This is going to be like, I believe, 4 million families that are going to get this. So a lot of people are going to qualify. And there, I think the ambition is hoping that understanding that help is coming in concert with other initiatives to go forward and understand there's an issue will be part of the progress to make it better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, what about, like, I think that they have some of that with programs like ODSP, where they will, if
Special
you need a
diet
special
allowance.
diet
Yeah.
and stuff
Yes,
like
they
that.
do. They have
There's a
it with
lot of ways,
Ontario
yeah.
Works as well for diabetics, gluten intolerant, celiac. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They give a little extra allowance because
Mhm.
I'm gluten-free myself, and let me tell you, things are double and triple the price.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
I
believe
paid
that's where Jackie's question comes to.
$10
Yeah.
for a loaf of bread.
Oof.
Yeah.
You want to talk about ODSP and Ontario Works? And
ODSP, I don't know a lot about ODSP, but Ontario Works, I know a little bit more about that. It's definitely a temporary thing, and without the special diet, I believe people get $390 a month towards shelter. So 390 is the maximum you can get towards your shelter, so rent. So, I mean, I don't know anybody that only pays $390 in rent.
No.
And then I believe they give another 200 and something towards food, bus tickets, whatever, living. So yeah, it's under 700 a month.
Jeremy, you want to talk about that and the
And
NDP?
if I'm getting the number right, is for some reason we expect people in ODSP to be able to survive, and I believe it's a stipend of $13.65.
Yes,
And
right now. Yeah.
The NDP plan was, well, we were first to say it. I'm glad everybody's understanding now that this is a crisis, because it's not kept up with the cost of living or inflation or anything, is
Not
to
at all.
immediately double these benefits to make sure that they start getting at least close to understanding the challenges that on the ODSP or Ontario Works programs face. And from there, I promise to leave it indexed inflation to inflation and
I'm
continue to
trying
review it to make
manage
sure it's
because
fair.
Families,
Yeah.
who've got a bunch of kids.
As soon as COVID hit, it was left like $2 and now it's close to $3.
Yeah.
So it's all
Somebody has the chat open live probably at the moment. I should say it in my headphones, but that's good. We're back in business.
All right.
I have a number of friends who are on ODSP, and for living accommodation, like they used to be able to afford the one-bedroom apartment, and now they're rooming. You know, like Louise was saying about people that 2 and 3 beds to a room, like they have to take a roommate now. They can't afford a one-bedroom apartment on their own, or maybe not even a bachelor apartment.
Yeah, I mean, I was bringing up a similar thing with OSAP. Every program like that, whether it's directed at students, people with disabilities, the increase hasn't matched inflation and rising costs of living.
But it's not even close. The deal is because I know people who've been on ODSP. Usually the idea that you're on ODSP because you can't work.
You have or you can work part-time.
No, but that's not the point. I'm saying that the reason for ODSP is supposedly to protect people who can't work. However, the end result is that it's a punitive program. And so depending, if you can work a little and make a little bit of money, that helps. But let's say you can't, and you're punished for being sick or for suffering from mental illness or whatever. It's a horrible way to treat people. I mean, they're already having problems, and now they're being shoved into extreme poverty. What's the point?
Right.
There's no need for it.
A lot of people that are on Ontario Works and ODSP are the ones that are visiting the food banks and going to places like Center 105 for breakfast. And some of these people have full-time jobs. They just can't afford to feed themselves breakfast, lunch, and supper. I mean, and a perfect example, when I came here just over 3 years ago, I would see Facebook posts from the Agape Center and Center 105 saying, we fed 100 people this week. We fed 130 people. Now we are feeding 400 people, 450 people in just 3 years, guys. Just 3 years.
It's like percentage game where the people who need support when the prices keep changing, the amount of people who need help grows. It's your friends, it's your neighbors, it's your family. And let's not forget for the moment that save for anything that could change in your life, it's you. There's a reason we need these public supports in place, is at any given time somebody needs it, and we should never take for granted the reasons why we need them to be there.
I believe we haven't spoke on it yet, but Jeremy, the NDP's plan is to double ODSP, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yes, sorry. That is directly the intention from day one with Power, with Merritt Stiles as the premier. That's what happens. Like that. Let's get that fixed, because right now that system is not supporting people the way that it's expected to. And that is, well, how is anyone ever supposed to be able to, once you're on ODSP, you need that support. Yeah. Something has happened that has put you in a position where we as a community are making sure that that person is cared for. And when it falls down, when somebody is pushed into deep, deep poverty, it's not filling its goal. So that's something that we need to address.
I also think that because I know somebody that I was close to who went through this, and so it stresses the person who's on ODSP. They don't know if they can function. They don't know if they can pay rent or food, and these days they can't. But it also adds an additional burden to family and friends, okay? Because what are you going to do? You're going to let your friend or your family member starve? You're not, okay? So you end up paying for them, making them stuff, and it becomes a burden for everybody. And the person who's going through it has the additional layer of guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what's a good thing to take away from this to build into a positive direction is, of course, understanding that we have things like the Agape Center 105, who've been working with them to fundraise, because a big part of the initiative, part of the plan for the NDP is recognizing just how hard nonprofits and municipal efforts have been to try to help these people in need. And that immediately the NDP's plan is to make sure that we're paying our share, that the province comes to help and upload the costs of these things so that there is a support into these systems to try to take the burden off the person directly and show responsibility to the community doing the work.
Yeah. Well, you're right, Jeremy. Let me tell you, the spaghetti fundraiser that you attended, and Louise and a few of you, they actually raised for the Agape Center and Center 105 $21,000, a little over.
Awesome.
That's
awesome.
Wonderful fundraising. Like that's, you know.
I think it's wonderful, wonderful fundraising. What a drag that they have to do it.
Yep, exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, both agendas, both initiatives, usually when you see a real participation in this sort of thing, there's usually to make sure that you really reinforce their importance, because these are, well, we all agree on how important these are. Matching, supporting, contributing. These are the words that signal a government cares.
Another supportive center in Cornwall is the Pentecostal Church, kitty corner across from the library. They're open Monday and Thursday. I think Center 105 is Tuesday and Friday. So it's almost every weekday now that there are free breakfasts available for the people that need it. And on the other hand, though, it is a disappointment that, you know, everybody has to truck out and go to a breakfast every morning, and that they can't afford their own breakfast in their own home.
This is why making sure there's food at school when the kids get there. This is why the grocery rebate, doing what it can to try to offset it while we try to tackle it by bringing corporate greed to heel. It seems to have had a little bit of an unstopped growth in terms of corporate agenda, you know, from every angle, from whether it's a bank closing all of its branches in the rural communities, whether it's a grocery store using digital price tags to change the prices directly in your face while you're thinking about it. These are challenges to face. And it's at least we have the plan to turn the tide, and then it becomes a long-term conversation about making things better. And I think there will always be a need for nonprofits and for kitchen, which is unfortunate but true, in empowering that people recognize that ability. It's what can we do to help?
I think some of the local schools do that as well for their students. They'll have areas in the school where they have like a bowl of fruit or snacks that the kids can just come and take as they need.
Absolutely, Jackie. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. You're absolutely right, because the teachers, if you listen to teachers, they would tell you, you know, and this is part of why Merit Styles, you know, that's part of her background, right? This is why it matters so much to her. She's heard the people, she's seen it. So yes, when we say universals, because we absolutely work with them to supplement and support and grow those programs, because there is a real benefit there.
Yep.
Oh, we've come to the end of our last pre-election live stream.
Hey, everybody, let's take a quick story now about our voting experience. Have we all voted?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
We've all voted.
Yeah.
And to everybody who's watching in the live stream, I hope that you do too.
Yes.
So tomorrow, being Wednesday, is the last day before the election day itself. You can vote tomorrow. I believe it is 10 to 8 in the Cornwall area.
I think it's
I had it
And
all.
rather than quote me, go straight to electionsontario.ca.
Yeah.
And it's on, if you got your voting card, it's on there.
Yeah. Well, that's your polling station. That's for election day itself.
Oh,
so
but
in this case,
it has information too about
which is great.
early voting.
But you can vote certainly in Cornwall, you can vote until Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Yes.
6 p.m. Thank you.
6 p.m. is when it ends. So that's the early one. And that's at the Cornwall Square. I was there today voting. Guess who for? And
who did you vote for?
Yeah, guess.
Party.
I had a really proud moment with my son. Max, he's 19. It's the first time he ever voted. I didn't ask him who he voted for. I just have said, I'm so proud of you for being here, and just go and tell your friends how interesting because I could see it on his face, just how awesome it felt to do. And tell your friends to go and do this, man. So
Yeah.
what I was trying to get at, to just bring full circle, 'cause I'm gonna let everybody else have a talk, is to say that the voters cards, not everybody's gotten them. So, but you don't have to wait with the proper piece of ID. So government ID with your picture on it, something that shows your address. You're ready to rock immediately. No voters card required. And if you don't get your voters card, that on Elections Ontario's website or calling the 1-800 number with your postal code, they can direct you where to go.
But the thing is just to be clear, what they require from you is something with a picture ID, preferably with your address on it, like your driver's license. If you don't have a voter's card, and if not, a piece of ID and a utility bill, which will establish where you live. Okay.
Perfect.
I also
so
want to say, I believe
ahead.
I saw on a sign when I voted at the mall, if your ID is only on your phone, I'm pretty sure they'll accept that too.
Really?
Okay.
I voted at the square also, and all I needed was my Ontario photo card, and I didn't have to bring a bill for address. They just looked up my address, and I was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, because the voter card is a valid piece. The identity card is that purple card instead of a driver's license that you can have, is absolutely that's exactly what it's for. So good for you, Ken.
And I think it's important that people know it's really fast.
Yeah.
Okay. It'll be a little bit longer, perhaps,
Tomorrow,
on election day, on the 27th. But it's fast. I mean, I went down. There was a significant number of people there, but it still took us about 10-12 minutes.
Yeah, do what we did. Go early. Go tomorrow. Go up to the
Yeah, if you
square.
go
Roll up the rim
early.
to win. Go to the
Today I
square. Roll
went,
up the rim
nobody
to
was
win
there.
Roll
afterwards.
up
See
the
if you
win
get
and
lucky.
win.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you ask me, 10-12 minutes to give your voice is nothing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, hats off to the people from Elections Ontario because of the amount of work they've done in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
We really need to make sure you thank the people who are working to protect our democracy. It was an exceptional thing to see just how hard they're working and how quickly they could put this together, because that was a big challenge. I think that was a real difficulty. So I'm really grateful that they're there.
And they're really nice people, you know.
They're your neighbors, right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And you can sit and talk. If you have any questions, if you're not sure about how to do something, ask. You know, there's no big deal. It's very simple. And neat voting system. You do your mark, it goes into this envelope, and that thing is slid into a machine that I think it counts the vote immediately, eh?
It does.
I
It looks
put
like
mine
it
in a
locks it in.
box.
Huh?
I put mine in a box.
Oh, okay.
There's
well,
some they
just-
might do later. There's machines, but there's also ballot
Yeah,
boxes.
I had to put it
Yeah.
in a box the day I went about a week ago, and there was nobody there. I was in and out in 2 minutes.
And you
Okay.
had
We're
to
putting that
write.
together.
You had to write the
I had to
candidate
write
name.
the name, Jeremy. Yes.
Oh,
It was
Right the
like,
name.
we're talking in a hurry. They
Oh,
had
I
to
had
get
to
things
write
together
Nolan
in a
Quinn.
hurry. As you will. As you will. All I want, all I
No.
care about
Hilarious.
is that we
happening.
do
The
better
campaign.
than 42%. It was
Yeah.
41.63, 41.65, which was below the average of 44. And I trust in everyone in this riding. I know I've talked to you, that I believe that you have the power for change, and I respect that you go and vote, period. So I really hope you do. I'm sure you saw on our Facebook page, the intention here is that, let's say you're stuck for a ride, you want to get there, we
Yes.
will help you. Just reach out. We will do everything in our power to help make sure that you get the right to vote. So I put the money where my mouth is.
Yep. Even if you're not voting for us, we'll help get you to the polls. But we'd
I
like
won't
it
ask.
if you voted for us. You know.
I'll probably talk you to death, but I won't ask.
Take the long route to the square.
That'd be a long, awkward car ride.
It's like cash cab, except you're going to the polling station.
Oh, that's a good
Okay.
show.
The grand prize is your civic pride.
Well, the grand prize is that you've expressed yourself, you've put your X on the card, you've made your choice, and you can turn around and say, well, I've done the best that I can. Okay? If you don't do that, to me, you have no right to complain later. If you don't
And
like
I
what you
counter
get.
that you can always turn that complaint into an opportunity just to feel
Yeah.
empowered to do your thing.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you.
Empowerment, self-empowerment.
Yeah, it is self-empowerment and it feels really good to do.
Mhm.
All right, everybody. So listen, Jeremy, I've had a blast with you doing these live streams. I've also had fun working with you, and I wish you the absolute best of luck. Yeah, I'm almost emotional. Well, not that emotional, I'm tired, but but it has been, you're a wonderful candidate. You're a really nice guy. And
Yeah.
Jackie, you've been with us on the start on these live streams. Thank you so much for contributing and being here today.
Yeah, no problem.
Really glad to bring you in.
Let me know when the recording is finished, Louise, because I'd like to ask Jeremy a question.
oh yeah, we'll stay on for a couple of minutes, but
Okay.
I will, let me just see. Yes, I'm going to stop the live stream. So
Yes, and thank
And so
you
long,
for
everybody.
all of you taking part in this whole process. It's so
Yeah.
important.
Jeremy, it's been an honor working with you.
Yeah.
I am so
We're
even-
not done yet,
Yeah.
Phyllis. You want to come walking with me tomorrow or what?
Walk
We
with
will still be
Phyllis.
canvassing. We will
Not
still
with
be
COPD.
canvassing.
No, I can't.
Yeah. No. Put you in the chase car.
Okay.
No, I will say I have seen about half the huge amount of snow we got melt over the past couple days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
yeah, it's been
Good weather for
been
election
replaced by lakes everywhere.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's say goodbye to everybody and happy voting, and
Yep.
we'll see you all soon. Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.